Some YouTube suggest there's a problem in an advanced scientific field like cosmology or quantum physics. But what if there's something badly wrong with what's treated as a casually solvable problem about our own species, like why humans walk on their back legs? Google tells that bipedalism freed our hands for gathering things and for using tools, for walking efficiently, and to stay cool. ChatGPT, DeepSeek, and Gemini gave the same factors. These explanations from AIs trained in the scientific literature are all about independent marginal advantages. And they aren't that interesting. They just teach that evolution involves small advantages that add up. Also, none evoke outside actors, unless one counts inanimate factors like climate change. Humans are imagined as evolving as the only actors on a bare stage. According to that conventional story, as humans became more intelligent, they took to using stone tools and then clubs and finally spears. I want to present a case that these explanations are wrong. Humans could only have left the forest if they'd carried spears, and they could only have carried spears if they were bipedal. And that had nothing to do with their intelligence. It was because of the particular qualities of spears. I am partly bringing up to date an old and discredited argument out of Africa. I'm not an evolutionary biologist. I'm a land surveyor, and I'm a South African who grew up in a time of intense language-based arguments about evolution. To my English-speaking group, Professor Raymond Dart, who'd found the first Australopithecus southern apes of Africa. He was a hero whose findings were ignored for 20 years and then had his interpretation unfairly dismissed. The American writer Robert Ardrey later dramatized the story as one about the blindness of the metropolitan science establishment. And Ardrey has been himself discredited as a violence-promoting pseudoscientist. Well, I want to retell what happens when, like Dart, we bring hominins back from a bare acting stage into this context of relations in the African savanna ecological food web, even reduced to this caricature of its truly wonderful creative depth, where every species thrives by eating without being eaten, or by eating without being killed by a creature that it needs to eat. Google gives this conventional pic when prompted for, quote, the ascent of man. It shows steadily accelerating brain size. Its meaning hardly needs to be explained. Brain size goes with intelligence. Intelligence is obviously useful. Humans are just lucky to have evolved to be so intelligent, a bit ahead of the other apes. In 2021, a team led by Professor De Silva published this graph of hominin brain size against time using a big data set. They used software that automatically fitted a chain of linear trend lines. They want to study a radical decrease in brain size over just the last 3,000 years. But their graph also shows a nick point about 2.3 million years ago, from gradual to steep. That was near the time of Dart's Australopithecus. De Silva's team used a log scale for brain size so that it clearly showed the recent decrease in brain size that they were interested in. Here's a graph using a simple linear brain volume scale from AI data of just a few critical hominin species against time. It fits two straight lines that separate bipedalism, shown in green, during a period of slow brain growth from later 20 times quicker brain expansion, the so-called human encephalization. This green line shows that when bipedalism evolved, roughly from humans' last common ancestor with forest-living apes, up to Dart's pivotal Australopithecus africanus, it lay on the flatlining trend line. At the Swartkrans site, northwest of Johannesburg, a hominin skull was found with puncture marks that matched the canines of a leopard found at the same site. Baboon fossils were also found at the Swartkrans site. Some of those baboon species were much bigger than living ones. The hominins and baboons whose fossils were found together were the descendants of two kinds of primates that had settled the savanna, arboreal monkeys and apes. The monkeys adapted into baboons with a dog-like body plan that shared with many other animals. But apes adopted into an utterly unique body plan, not shared with any other of over 1,000 mammal genera. Baboons are a neglected godsend for understanding the external forces that Australopiths shared with them. They're a control. If we can understand why baboons look like dogs, that can help us understand why the Australopiths had this unique body plan. Here's what the struggle for existence between baboons and a leopard looks like when the camera points right down the line of a leopard's attack, since it had been using tourist vehicles as stalking cover.
Wow! Holy!
Although the consensus is that baboons evolved their big canines through sexual selection, they surely played a role in routing that leopard. If it had been hunting unarmed hominins instead, then they wouldn't have matched the level of problem that the baboons posed for that leopard, with their long canines and long jaws. So, arboreal monkeys adapted to foraging on the ground simply by getting better at the common primate defensive strategy of biting. But even one of the earliest bipedal hominins, Sahelanthropus, 7 million years ago, hadn't followed that path. It was bipedal and it had a short jaw without massive canine teeth. Raymond Dart, who first described a small-brained ancestor, Australopithecus africanus, back in 1925, used its small canines, bipedal stance and fierce environment to suggest that it had used its freed hands to wield weapons. Later, he developed the idea that those weapons could have been animal bones found at the same site. That would have been direct evidence. But in the 1970s, it was found that those bones had been accumulated by predators, so the whole idea of early weapon use was quashed. The oldest wooden weapons yet found came from a German coal mining of what had been a bog just 350,000 years ago. Unlike stone tools, exposed wood is quickly metabolized by its own active food web, so dead wood can very seldom be fossilized. This AI overview dates the evolution of hand weapons to almost modern Neanderthals, starting with clubs and other thrown weapons. But if we go back to Dart's original reasoning, then the more ancient hominid bipedal body plan and teeth are strong indirect evidence that their defense was to use hand weapons instead of biting. How does modern science visualize ancient Australopiths reacting to a threat? This image comes from a PBS educational video, When Humans Were Prey. It shows male hominins picking up fallen branches that just happen to be lying around conveniently. Suppose hypothetically that such encounters did happen and that some hominins survived them. What adaptive changes would that have led to? Surely the bent sticks would have selectively been adapted into pointed sticks, and they would have been carried around while foraging, both for protection of the troop and as warnings to predators, the so-called epistemic signaling. The hypothetical use of fallen branches would have evolved into obligatory relationships with spears so quickly in the evolutionary timescale, it would have been misleading to picture this as a typical event. The tiny pom-pom crab holds one anemone in each claw, and it manages them intensely. When threatened, it pushes the stinging anemones at the threat. It trims the anemones and takes food from them, keeping them small. If it loses one anemone, it tears the other into two and attaches half to the other claw, where it regenerates. When it molts or when it wants to clean its front, it first attaches an anemone to one of its legs and later retrieves it. If it loses both anemones, it immediately tries to replace them. So this is an obligatory relationship. Those complex behaviors evolved with only the transmission of instincts and without any brain to speak of. And that habit affected its body plan so that its claws are only useful for holding anemones. It's easier to reconstruct how forest apes could have pre-adapted grassland hominins for defensive spear use than it is to imagine how pom-pom crabs could have picked up the use of stinging anemones. Modern chimps use sticks to dig up tubers on the forest floor. It would be natural for a forest primate with a digging stick to try to keep an attacker away from it. The stick would then function as a spear. So, digging sticks can be seen as the ape's opportunity to enter grasslands carrying a spear. That would require having their hands free to carry that spear. Two kinds of spear have importantly different effects. A thrown spear can strike distant prey that's trying to escape, and if it lodges in the body, further movement is so painful that it slows or stops the animal. That's useful in hunting. Later humans are much better adapted for throwing spears than the Australopiths were. A thrusting spear has more complex defensive uses. It can stop an attacker, keep it at a distance and take the initiative from it, allowing time for others to join in the defense. If an attacker charges down a spear, that's grounded like this. Its own momentum would impale it, which is why even a much heavier attacker would lose the advantage of its weight. A thrusting spear can also be pushed at the attacker with as much effect as a desperate spear holder's vigor can achieve. So, unlike the throwing spear and a kerry that this man is holding in his left hand, the thrusting spear is both a stopper and a striker. Several throwing spears might be held ready for throwing, but a hominid would retain just a single thrusting spear, and that might be his obligatory partner for life. Before muskets and cannon became main weapons in European wars, groups of pikemen could stop charging cavalry. That shows the power of a thrusting spear to stop a heavier antagonist. And a phalanx of pikemen looks a bit like an African porcupine. Chimps don't need stone tools to make digging sticks, so weapons might logically have evolved before stone tools. The stone tools just having first enabled hominids to make weapons more efficiently. The conventional sequence of tools before weapons would then be driven partly by the incidental fact that stones don't decay the way wood does. So they appear first in the archaeological record. Overall, though we couldn't have had a conversation with an Australopith any more than we can with a chimp, we can recognize a brotherhood in their early, painstaking attention to making things that isn't widely shared with other mammals.